they're arguing. These kids are so clever, they're so smart. You can put a college kid on Handy and Holmes right now, and he would, that was conservative liberal, for those of you who are younger who don't know. And he would kick Alan Combs' ass, because that's all conservatives do, and it develops an intellectual skill that I think is important to know. I mean, whether you're going to be a pundit on TV, or a lawyer, or you're a pharmaceutical executive, you need to know both sides of the argument to formulate your own argument. About that time, they put a high school Republican on Handy and Combs, and he kicked Alan Combs' ass. Meanwhile, all you get from the left is this bold, self-righteous look at me, and oh, my feelings are hurt, which is just, you know, a different form of Nazi bullying, as this is. Oh, my feelings, you can't say this. I need the safe space. You know, formulate an argument. And as we've also just seen, part of the reason I think this is changing is, it all comes back to immigration. It's a long part of the Anglo-Saxon tradition to think that debate leads to the truth rising to the top. It goes back to what Martin Luther's theses, the Magna Carta, our Declaration of Independence, a statement for the world explaining our revolution. I mean, fast forward to all of these conservative books coming out. You know, when I wanted to impeach Bill Clinton, I didn't stand outside the White House with a sign yelling fascist. I wrote a book. I made the arguments. I cited the law. We were bringing 300, 400, 700-year history, as I say, going back to Magna Carta and Martin Luther. And, you know, look to the South for the sort of dialogue and politics we're getting here. I mean, right now, you can look it up, there's a protest someplace in Latin America. Just storm the streets, wave the signs. You see it in a lot of other countries. You don't see it in our country, which is why assimilation is so important. We can take in anybody, but you gotta learn the Anglo-Saxon tradition of arguing points out, of deliberating, of changing laws, of voting in a democracy, and not just running out onto the street and smashing Starbucks windows.
Doesn't it benefit you to hear either a view that you support or a view you oppose, and does it help you refine your argument if you're on a college campus today and if you're a student?
I think being informed is the most important thing one can do. To be educated on all points of view. Whether there's an Anglo-Saxon tradition that presupposes all other traditions, I think is a protesters that are in the streets breaking things up or liberal protesters is also fallacious. I think that there's an enormous number of liberal commentators, pundits, and minds who are calm and measured, judicious, and erudite in what they have to say. The argument about whether you should limit free speech is one matter. The political correctness thing is another matter. I don't think political correctness is run amok. I think that people who assert that wish to avail themselves of hate speech and misogyny, homophobia, and racism, and that they do it under the cover of having their rights trampled by political correctness. Does that address the point that you were asking?
I think that maybe it does address part of it, but I might go to Guy now and ask him, why do you think we've seen the uptick in these incidents, in the people revoking invitations, or students asking that people not come to campuses? Why is this on the rise?
It's because it works. The administrators sit there and let the children be children and refuse to be the adults and say, no, we're going to allow people to speak on campus. And I thought it was interesting, these protesters, we had two groups of them, two of whom were white, I would point out. But these two over here were saying Trump and Pence must go with their big banner. We're going to have an election in 3.5 years. That's how we do things in this country. And I mean, I don't understand. It seems like seems like outbursts like that are doing a lot of favors, I think, to Donald Trump and Mike Pence to get reelected. You know, it's really frustrating.
Share the stream, folks. Share the stream.
I actually was thinking about this panel before we started, and I was thinking about my freshman year in college. It was 2003 at Northwestern, and we had a controversial speaker coming to campus. People had papered the campus sidewalks with some of this person's controversial or objectionable quotes, and of course that drew the audience to overflow crowd, and that person was Coulter. And she came out to a standing room only audience. She opened by saying, liberals are only wrong about two things, foreign policy and domestic policy. And that got a laugh and some boos and some groans, and we were off to the races. She made a Ted Kennedy killed a woman joke, fact check true, and we asked questions of her for an hour. She stood for an hour and took our questions, and some people were very upset with what she had to say. The faculty wrote a letter to the Daily Northwestern, 7 or 8 of them, calling it a hate rally. She signed a copy of the newspaper with hate and Coulter. And then everyone went home. Everyone went home and discussed what we had just seen. And I don't know if anyone's minds were changed, I don't know. But what didn't happen was no one stood up and tried to shut down what was going on. No one tried to get her disinvited from campus. That wasn't that long ago. And I hope we can get back to a paradigm where we have a little bit of tolerance to hear things that might genuinely be offensive to us. You have no right not to hear inoffensive things. You have a right not to show up if you don't want to. You don't have a right to show up and disrupt events and block other people from spreading.
There has been this rise, and students are acting and trying to stop speakers from coming to campus. Do you, as with your tech and digital background, do you think social media is playing a role in this, or do you see another cause for this uptick?
I should qualify first by saying that I'm a college dropout, and I'm further to the left than most people who call themselves liberals, but I hate these labels. Look, I believe that free speech doesn't mean that we're not responsible for the consequences of what we say. And I think a fundamental American value is that free speech matters. And that the solution for what you might think of as bad speech or offensive speech is more speech. The problem that I have isn't with people banning Coulter or whoever on college. But look, on the internet, like, I never thought that I would be in a place where I would be praying that the president would engage less on social media. I think whether you're a Trump fan or not, everybody's a little freaked out by the hair trigger. But, you know, journalists, I can think of a number of, look, my colleagues at Boing Boing who had Jewish-sounding last names were harassed by neo-Nazis who followed them around on Twitter, posted their addresses, threatened their families. You know, we who work in journalism and who make a living, just like Anne, just like other polarizing speakers, we have a right to speak without being physically threatened, right? So this idea that it's just about right-wingers and bleeding-heart liberals who are clutching their pearls over offensive words, I think this is BS. This is BS. Like, there are people like me who are ready to fight, who are ready to argue, who are ready to have engaged and civil conversations. This doesn't have to be something where we're just hiding behind walls all the time.
Southern University, Senator Cornyn was scheduled to be the commencement speaker, and the students objected, and his invitation was withdrawn. And one of the arguments that the students gave was that this was their commencement, they should enjoy it, they should have someone at graduation whom they wanted to hear from. Would you agree with that?
If they had said he's too boring a speaker, I would have agreed. But I don't know, what, that they take a vote? He's a senator from one of the most populous states, and the state where this college happens to be. My alma mater, Cornell, avoids all this hoo-ha over the commencement speeches by having the president give the speech every year. And maybe that's a good idea, and just bring in people who have something to say or interesting to educate the students.
That's it. My question. Yes. question for the whole panel, and that is there a difference between free speech and someone coming on campus to talk about a genuinely controversial idea versus, is there a fine line between that and provocation on campuses? Or do you view them as one and the same and all covered by free speech?
Can I say, anyone who wants to be heard wants to be provocative. Winston Churchill was being provocative when he said, we will fight on the beaches, and gives these magnificent speeches. Of course you were trying to provoke people to read you other lies or to listen to you. And the idea that there is a difference between hate speech and speech
okay, so Milo Yiannopoulos, he was during a speech, he put the photo and the name of a transgender student on the screen behind him. Is that unnecessarily and irresponsibly treating a student in a really unkind manner, or is that a part of free speech that should be happening on campuses today?
What we're talking about is in part people who monetize hate. I gotta say here, all you guys trashing Ann Coulter, I respect her for her ability to build a very successful career out of hate. Who's rounding out free speech now?
Safe spaces and snowflakes and all that. But I find that from the top down, Orange 45, the Kremlin controlled carrot, is the most sensitive snowflake in the entire world. He can accept no criticism. He's mad at Mitch McConnell. He's mad at Jefferson Beauregard Sessions. He's mad at the world. He's mad at Twitter because no one's listening to him and doing what he wants all the time. And that doesn't seem to be a leadership role in my estimation. It seems to be someone who wants their feelings protected, who should be above this kind of fray and not engaging in childish. You may remember the last president, before everything went to shit, was a calm, judicious, legal-minded speaker. The idea that he would say something like sad or bad or beleaguered Attorney General or anything like that was beyond the pale. And now the discourse is so, and I just said shit, but the discourse is so vulgar and childish. The Director of Communications, who by the way isn't officially the Director of Communications, said some things last week that really would get you fired at any other time in any other place in history. And now we allow it because we're gangsters.
Please share the stream. People on the stream, please share it on social media. Thank you very much. This is Jen from Golden State Times.
We're just abusive. Don't have your mic on. Can you hear?
And you guys need to work on a lot of things. But you're making two different arguments. One is that the president is being a snowflake, and the second is that the president's spokesmen are engaging in hate speech and vulgar. And I would disagree with you on a lot of certainly what Scaramucci said. I think I would prefer to have what you're calling the snowflakes that float.
It's after this. Ben Shapiro versus Cenk Younger is after this, I believe. More updates later.
So far on the panel, I'm the one who's been called a hater. I've been called a xenophobe. I've been called any of you names, and you don't see me crying. Shouting someone down isn't giving another argument, it isn't giving me a fact, it isn't giving me the declaration of independence from, Brazil.
Guy.
I'm not one to defend how the president and his top team communicate a lot of the time. I do think it's interesting that some people are pining for the good old days where presidents said erudite, sophisticated things to the American people, such as, if you like your plan, you can keep your plan.
Please ban the trolls carrot, thank you.
Campus,
Press 1 if you guys can hear me. Press 1 if you guys can hear me.
What I find distressing as we discuss these issues is that a lot of people, particularly on the left, seem to conflate words that they don't like with violence, right? They conflate speech with violence and therefore justify violence to shut down speech. And I think that's a terribly wrong-headed way of approaching it. And that's why, you mentioned Milo. He is not my cup of tea in a number of different ways, but the notion that people standing in line to go hear him speak should be pepper sprayed with people smashing windows and burning cars around him and the entire event shut down, absolutely not. That is a heckler's veto and it's disgraceful. It's not about the things that he has to say, it has to do with his right to say it and the criminal behavior of the people blocking him from doing so. That's the core of the issue.
How should they be viewing this when they do have the challenge of safety and security of their students? And that does come into play. I know that's what Berkeley said, right, Anne? Yes.
Full tax on conservative speech.
No, but that's the challenge for university administrators. So should they be in a position where they are either increasing and putting more money out there for security costs, or are they actually deciding that certain speakers aren't coming on their campuses?
Speakers aren't coming for free. And Coulter doesn't speak for free at these universities. Milo doesn't speak for free at these universities. People get paid. It's a gig. For all I know, this might be a very complex piece of performance art that you're doing, Anne, and I salute you for it.
Damn.
Up to us on this panel to decide. There are 200 years of Supreme Court cases. Berkeley has to allow the speech the same way in the South. Democrats had to allow blacks to vote. They couldn't impose the University of California is, blindingly a state institution. Beyond that, any university that accepts federal funds, they have to allow the speech.
Nugget to this, one additional thought, which is when you have administrators making the case, as we've seen with Anne and others, that because the speaker is controversial, it needs to be increased security. That security, therefore, must be paid for by the host organization, the college Republicans or YAF or some right-wing group or right-leaning group. That is essentially, or actually literally, making one side's speech less free, literally, by charging...
Please share the stream. Thank you very much.
...security for fees, which is sort of a roundabout way of allowing sort of the mob or the jackals to win, because the college Republicans may have a budget to bring Anne and pay her to speak. They may not have $5,000 to $10,000 extra dollars after that to keep violent hooligans from beating people up. That should be on the school, right?
If anybody else is using this stream as theirs, we will copyright strike you. Thank you.
Not if they're accepting federal grants. No, that comes with strings. So if you want to have your private universities, don't accept the federal money. I think you'll fail.
Well, I have nothing to say. As far as, it's imperative that people listen to one another. I think that would be an important thing. And I don't advocate violence under any circumstances. And I don't think shouting people down is a particularly effective way of communicating What I take exception to is people victimizing themselves and saying that they're not being heard when we've heard nothing but the white privileged voice of white privileged people. And I say this as a white privileged we have been poisoned by it. The reason why everything is in the state it's in is because we've heard far too much from rich, white, privileged, toxic people. It would be nice if the dialogue was a little more balanced. For instance, during the election, you may recall, on television, people would come on, or they would show an empty hall where Trump was about to speak for an hour, and then he would come on and say something that had nothing to do with anything, and then analyze that forever, rather than show anything that Hillary Clinton was talking about, which was perhaps about policy or boring things that people don't like. This is a very mild case that I'm putting forward here, because I'm aware that you're all going to boo in about 5 seconds. And it doesn't hurt my feelings that much either. I'm a comedian, so I'm used to being booed. I just feel like there's a very big, there's a lot of disingenuousness going around on the part of people who are on the right in particular, that they're being victimized. And they've had the mic forever and ever, as long as I can remember. I don't remember there ever being, you were speaking of Kennedy Combs. Mr. Combs was a nice person. I don't think that the liberal left was something that he was representing in a giant way. In my opinion. I would love to see someone on TV that wasn't a white person give their opinion all the time, the way white people are.
I think the idea that conservatives have had the microphone exclusively in America forever is preposterous. That's looking at people. When you use the term white privilege, I think that this is, in some respects, a useful term, right? People who look like us have, for the entire existence of humanity, enjoyed a privileged place. And that is something that we should keep in mind when we're interacting with people who don't look like us and come from different backgrounds. Introspection is good, right? However, using white privilege as a term to say, comma, and therefore, your opinion is less important, less welcome, shut up. That's where I say no. Like, I think it's used as a term to try to delegitimize something that I might have to say, as opposed to addressing the content of what I have to say. My skin color and my sex should not determine whether the content of my statements are valid or not.
I know what you're saying, but the playing field's not level, so therefore, I think we've had one black president and no women presidents. When we have had 45 black presidents and 45 women presidents, then the playing field is slightly more level. To not understand your own privilege and the fact that really fuck off, that's your intelligent argument.
I know.
About white privilege and toxic masculinity.
Declaration of Independence and the Magna Carta, for goodness sakes.
That's a cliche. I can't walk through a college campus without hearing about Martin Luther's 95 Theses. Whoa, what a cliche I'm using. Instead of using cliches like toxic masculinity and white privilege, I thought I'd do what I think the purpose of speech fact, I have 2 points on this, one that is not true, one that it's used as a cover to once again allow the left, Democrats in this country, to deny blacks genuine civil rights. Point one, come on, be brave, we all know there's affirmative action, not only for African Americans, the only ones who deserve it, for Thai Americans, Hispanic Americans, blah, 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 blah. We know for a fact that on college campuses there are groups for Asians, there are groups for Latinos, there are groups for blacks. Oh, you try to start a white group and see how that white privilege is going. Point two, so it's nonsense. Point two is, as I described in my book, Mugs, liberals pretended to care about black civil rights for about 6 minutes, and then suddenly, what the purpose of civil rights was to make up for the legacy of slavery. It is to redress past injustices. African Americans have been in this country as long as white Americans. They got the short end of the stick for about 2 centuries. That is the purpose of affirmative action. That is why there's special rules for African Americans. And then suddenly, we spent 50 years dumping every other culture of the world on this country. And no, it's not black Americans anymore, it's Rainbow Coalition. Now suddenly ties show up on Friday and then start complaining on Monday. Oh, I noticed there are no ties on the evening newscast. When did we suddenly, we are a biracial country. We owe one half of this, or one part of this, something. To talk about white privilege is to create a demon, to try to bring the rainbow together. No, I'm sorry, African Americans are not the same as someone who just ran across the border yesterday. That is a special category, and that's why white privilege is meant to disguise.
Denny, do you want to respond?
Wow. I support Ann Coulter's right to say whatever vile, hateful, racist. Say what you want and need to say that reflects your own experience, your own strength, your own history, and that we can have a common dialogue. I'm really glad that that exists. No one can kick me or kick Ann off the internet. And I'm hoping that Ajit Pai, the new FCC commissioner that Trump put in place, it looks like they're going to completely gut net neutrality, which is an unsexy word, but it's what makes it possible for all of us. You who are sitting there who might have different views than me, and you who are sitting there who agree with me, it's really important that we put principles before personalities, and that we preserve a free and open commons for the exchange of ideas. I'm not sitting here talking over Ann or hoping that people will come in here and interrupt people whose views I might disagree with. I think it's really important that we have more of these kinds of conversations face to face. We are all Americans.
So we have microphones along the aisles, and we would invite people if they would like to ask questions. Our first question. Thank you.
So, first of all, is it Greg you're sitting next to Ann? Is your name Greg?
Greg.
Okay. So, first of all, the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution are not catchphrases. They are the documents that allow you to speak up there freely. And they are the documents that the men and women of our military, I have a question. The men and women of our military allow us to have free speech. So, that is what leads me to my question. As a former educator, we do not have the freedom or the ability to have free speech. So, my question to you is, not only do we have non-free speech from our professors, from our teachers to our students, but how do we allow the teachers to actually be able to have free speech if they're not liberal?
Okay. Do you want to answer that?
I didn't understand all
Yeah, so we're just going to make a quick comment. So it's very hard to hear you from those microphones, so one sentence, short questions. We're really going to have to keep it to that so that we can get to your questions.
Yes.
It's hard to hear from these microphones. So okay, if we'll go here, just one short question, please, from this microphone up front.
I think when are we going to stop to allow people like today to disrupt speech for other people to hear? That's abominable, that should never happen. And we are in a civilized society. It's about time people act like it.
Okay, and again, we're going to ask if these are questions and not comments. We'll go to the microphone in the back.
So I find it interesting that when Donald Trump was elected, Democrats were protesting, but when Obama was elected, Republicans were protesting. So why is it that Democrats protest?
Where is it? Where is it?
Actually, Republicans were not protesting the mere election. The protest came when he passed, they were pushing through Obamacare. You did not see anything equivalent to the Women's March. It wasn't just the election of Obama. It was when they started to do things that would change our lives and take our health care away. That's why people protested.
Okay, we'll go to the front microphone, and again, a short question. Thank you.
All right, I had a question for Ms. Coulter. I'm a professor at a university in California, and I'm new. I've only been here 1 year, but based on my experience, I think it is true that most professors are far liberal. But in the news they talk about professor speeches like yours being shut down.
Yeah.
That's not the experience that I've had with my professors, with my colleagues. When I talk to them, they seem to agree. So my question is, do you think your experience is just influenced by a few administrators or a few professors? Because it doesn't seem like, from my experience, that most professors would want to shut their speech down.
And who was your question directed to?
Ms. Coulter. Did that make sense?
I didn't hear any of that. And by the way, if I could also endorse the idea, it should be one sentence and it should end with a question mark, because it's very hard to hear what you guys are saying from here.
Do you think your speech was shut down by just a few administrators or professors, or do you think it was some sort of, I don't know?
It varies college to college. I mean, I describe college speeches, like I say, I've been doing this for more than a decade, about 20 college speeches a year on average, I'd say. And I described it at the beginning of, if Democrats had any brains, they'd be Republicans, which is that it's, I mean, as Guy described, we have a lot of fun at my college speeches. I'll take questions until the liberals have collapsed of exhaustion. And at Harvard, at Yale, I spoke to the Yale Debating Society a couple of years ago, and frequently Smith. I can always tell whether the college speech is going to be fun by looking at the average SAT scores. Because they want to challenge you. It tends to be, and you'll notice this in the attacks, at least until now, the attacks on conservatives, including, Bill Kristol, now Richard Dawkins, famous atheist, has been shut out of Berkeley for an untoward remark he made on Twitter about Muslims. But historically, the better colleges, they're smart kids. They want to wrangle with you. It's fun. A good time is had by all. It tends to be the community college kids and college dropouts who show up dressed as Nazis, again, in native garb. Things have changed now. I mean, it is being rewarded. So, for example, when I was saying, no, colleges have a constitutional responsibility to allow a constitutional right to be exercised. It's not that hard. This business, their excuse about, oh, they're going to be protesters. You shut down the first protest, you expel any students involved, you fine them, you arrest them. That'll be the end of that. If they want free speech, they can have it. But anyway, that's how it varies college to college.
Okay, we're going to go to the microphone in the back, and just a question, please. Yes. First, we're going to go to Guy to add to that.
I just want to add one thing. I think there are hopeful signs in this as well, where people, hopefully all in this room, can come together and celebrate certain things. There's an NYU professor named Jonathan Haidt, who's really good on these issues. He's a left-leaning guy, and he's really concerned about the direction things are going, and so he started a group called Heterodox Academy, where there have been hundreds of professors, most of them left-leaning from around the country, signing on to basically this credo, which is we need to have open, free, robust exchanges of ideas and not shut things down. That's a very good development. John Lovett, one of the guys on the Pod Save America crowd, he wrote a wonderful piece in The Atlantic a couple of years ago on this exact issue. I think that there is an ability to link arms across the political divide when it comes to protecting free exchange of ideas, and that's why I think events like this, at their best, are very important.
Yes.
Hi. This question struck out the entire panel. So given that there's a fair amount of subjectivity in interpreting Supreme Court holdings and federal regulations, what would you all suggest as a reasonable metric for university administrators to draw the line between what can be construed as a very, very strenuous argument between two people and something that can be legally construed as throwing hate speech?
Guy, you want to answer?
Hate speech is constitutionally protected speech. Right? There's no loophole for hate speech in the Constitution.
I'm sorry, was my question?
You know, one way it could be done, obviously he is right, there is no such thing as hate speech, but come on, these are college students, college groups, they have to raise money, a lot in my case, to bring us in. We're not going to have a planner standing up on campus. They have to be student groups who are choosing to hear these people. So, I mean, the Klan speech is protected under the Constitution, but I don't think that's really what we're talking about, and I think that's what you're getting at. Student groups are inviting them, there is a process. We are talking about views that are within the range of what political debate is.
And I worry about the defining down of hate, where things that you disagree with equal hate, and if hate is the buzzword that's used to suppress speech,
add something to what I just said about the defining down of hate. There's also a refining of hate, which is people who are wildly racist, homophobic, and misogynistic will say, oh, well, that's how I feel. Well, there is no real support for your prejudice. If you're a bigoted person,
the thing that holds to the camera, and then like it goes onto a monopod, but I don't know where it is. I have to find it and get it tomorrow because everybody's like, you're getting all of this and you're moving back and forth. It's like awesome.
Even though my opinion is poisonous, obviously is protected by the Constitution. No matter how foul and misguided you are, you're allowed to speak. But I also feel like a lot of people hide behind that now, and I find that as disturbing as anything else that's happening that's trampling free speech, is that people will be openly, for instance, transphobic this week, which we saw coming from the highest caliber office in the land. And that's not a supportable position in my estimation. There's nothing to back it up. It's not a factual position. It's simply that your prejudice, which may be your opinion, but it's not that illuminating, quite frankly, and it's not shedding any light on any arguments. It's simply.
Did the guy reach out to you? The one that you told me to give him the phone number? Did he ever reach out? The guy that I told you that
my name is Shirley.
he reached out?
I went to an organization called Urban Game Changers, where we go into urban communities and we hold elected officials.
There's another chick in
this is my question to all
in Washington D.C.
Regarding
because she's good because she already has a lot of experience.
Michelle Alexander wrote a book called
but you know, in the future we're going to use her as our White House representative. So that's why I want her to get involved with writing and stuff like that.
Public trading, incarceration plight that has been in place. Strongly because of the crime bill that took place in 1994. So when we talk about mass incarceration, and my question regarding mass incarceration of black men, what is your take on that? Because you in the middle, I think it's Guy, I'm not sure, the comedian in the middle, you said that the black conservatives don't give us a shot. You don't give us a shot. The conservatives, the liberals have never cared about black people. Just because we had a black president, just because we had a black president does not mean that way. But again, regarding the mass incarceration of black men in this country, it's been devastating. What do you really care about black people? Because you don't. You don't care. We're not immigrants. We're indigenous slaves. So I would like to say I appreciate Aunt Coulter for being here. I would like the opportunity to meet her and give her this information regarding my organization. So answer my question regarding black people. Answer that question.
So I just want to say, so this is it's
regarding mass incarceration. What do you feel about human trafficking in America right now that is publicly traded? Black men, black people in the prison system that's publicly traded.
I do just want to raise that this is a freedom of speech and a censorship panel, and so I don't want to get too far off track.
No, I just like to ask questions. That's all. It's a valid question.
We're going to go to the next question in the back. Thank you.
No, I know. Okay. To answer your question, I think that we do have a mass incarceration problem, disproportionately impacting African Americans. I think it has to do with things including disproportionate guidelines when it comes to certain crimes that get more time. And I think that we should reform the system, and there's a bipartisan effort to do that, led by Democrats and Republicans like Rand Paul, and I support those efforts. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm sorry because we've now come up against our time and we're going to have to end the panel. I just want to thank everybody, our panelists, and also all of you who listened.
All right, folks, thank you very much for joining us. I'm over here with Paris from Liberty Writers. Go to libertywriters.com for all of your news. And also stay here at Golden State Times for all of your live streams. I'm right here with Paris. We are at Liberty Hall, where Ann Coulter was just speaking. So thank you very much for joining us. Like I said, we will have a we will have the actual video if you guys want to watch it later on. Maybe you guys missed some part of it. We'll be having it on our channel soon. So like I said, thank you very much for joining us. Go to libertywriters.com, check it out, and tell them that we send you. And also, thank you very much to everyone that came out and all the support. Sorry about the shakiness, but you know, I was trying to do this and this at the exact same time. And but tomorrow is going to be a lot better because I have a hookup for my phone that will just stay in place. So that's always a good thing. But anyways, thank you very much. If you're new, subscribe to the channel, and we're going to have more panelists speaking later on, so don't go anywhere. Live here at Golden State Times. Peace, folks. See you later, folks.